Let me click the start webinar then. I'm just waiting for Zoom to load to Facebook Live. It takes a few seconds.
Okay.
I'm gonna get a quick drink. You won't need me for the first second.
No.
All right, welcome everyone. This is Roxanne Truen from the Michigan State University Science Festival. And today we're joined by Jim McGrath from Nature Discovery, and he's going to talk to us all about the frogs of Michigan and show us some live specimens. And for people who are on Zoom, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, type them into the Q&A button on your screen. And if you're listening live on Facebook, write your questions in the comments and we'll get them answered. All right, Jim, I'll let you take it away.
All right. Thanks, Roxanne. And everybody out there, thank you for participating and attending today. First of all, I want you to let everybody know our little business, Nature Discovery, out north of Williamston, operates a lot like a nature center, but here's the weird thing, is that we are a small private nature center. We have a nature center that we built right onto our house that happens to hold, among many other things, what we call the state's largest zoo of Michigan native reptiles and amphibians. We use these educationally all over the state. If your family would like to come out by appointment and pay a visit, that is entirely possible. You can even pay a visit on short notice as long as we have a staff person available to show you around highly interactive stuff. But anyway, what I thought we would do today, frogging by ear is our thing. Back in the 90s, and I finished it in the early 2000s, we made our own CD of Michigan frog calls. Now there are 14 species of frogs found across the state. And I went around the state over a course of years and got a good audio recording of every one, then turned it into an educational, I'm narrating over the sound of the frog, an environmental CD where you're just listening to froggy nature sounds out on the swamp. This is available on our website if anybody cares to get a hold of one of these, and you can load it right onto your phone or iPad or something like that. So anyway, I'm going to be playing recordings from that CD of what we're going to go over just with our limited time, roughly a half an hour, a little over. We're only going to go over 8 of Michigan species of frogs, and those 8 are the ones that you're definitely going to see right around mid-Michigan, but they're not exclusive. You can find a lot of these species well beyond mid-Michigan in the state, some of them all the way across the state. We are going to take this in chronological order to the way the frogs' breeding windows go through the spring. A lot of you, I'm sure, are hearing some early frogs calling all this warm weather, especially we've had the past week. And so the early ones everybody's familiar with are the spring peeper. There's another one people aren't as familiar with called the chorus frog. And then there's a third one called the wood frog. These are the 3 early frogs to get going. I'm hearing them on our vernal ponds right out back in the distance as I'm talking to you. Here's a poster from the DNR that shows you all the frogs and toads of Michigan. And I'm going to quickly show you close-ups of the 3 that we're going to cover. Here's the spring peeper. This thing is no bigger than maybe an inch across. Notice the X on its back. Most peepers have nice crossing lines on the back. Many of them look like a perfect X. There's another little one, no bigger than the peeper, that's called the western chorus frog. Notice that the lines are parallel on its back. I've never seen a chorus frog with 2 lines that cross on its back, never once. And then the third one, the wood frog, these are frogs a lot of people might say, hey, I've seen those around, is bigger than the other 2, maybe twice as big, but it's brown and it has that dark mask through the eye. So let's start with those 3. I have live ones to show you, but I want to start out by starting up these recordings. The first one I'm going to play is the spring peepers on our pond right out back here on a warmish night, right about now, this time of year. I call this segment, We the Peepers. Whoa, wow. I better turn that volume down. Now, when you hear this sound coming from a little roadside, shallow wetland somewhere, think of the peepers as sending you two messages. One of them is we are spring peepers and we are making more of ourselves. The second one, loud and clear, is this is a vernal pond. There are no fish in this pond. Okay, these ponds where these little frogs breed are little shallow, weedy spots that have over the years largely been developed, destroyed, degraded because of human activities. Okay, we're going to cut that. Wow. Okay. The second one I'm going to play for you is the chorus frog. And remember, let's switch to frogs now, the live frogs. Remember I said the peeper has the lines across on its back. The chorus frog is lines that run parallel. I am going to take the peeper and the chorus frog that are both in this jar right here and see if I can shake them out on the table in front of me. My wife Carol's going to be my frog spotter, chase these things around if they don't stay put. And then I'm going to put the camera on them. And I want you to see if you can tell which one is the chorus and which one is the spring peeper. Get out of the jar. Get out. Okay. Oh, Carol, help. One's on the loose already. This is going to be an adventure. Come back. All right, behave. Stay. Stay. Okay, here we go. I'm hoping the lighting is good enough here. The one on the left is the peeper, and you might be able to make out the X on its back. Sometimes the markings stand out more on its back, sometimes than others. Any of these frogs can go much lighter or darker than you see them at any moment. And the chorus frogs has the lines running parallel. These frogs can be very difficult to put your eye on in nature, especially the chorus frog. Okay, all right, I'm going to switch off of that. Okay, to me there. Okay, I'm going to okay, Carol, do you want to help me corral these frogs? There. Ooh, that worked out well. They cooperated. Okay. All right, so now we covered the peeper by sound. Now I want to play the chorus frog. And again, a lot of you out there might be saying, hey, I'm hearing that, on that little shallow pond down the street. Okay, here it goes. They describe this, they, me, and whoever, describe it as sounding, imagine this, somebody dragging their thumbnail down the teeth of a comb. Chorus frogs call more energetically when the sun is out. I'm going to say, maybe temperatures in the upper 40s to 50s or more. Each of these frogs has a breeding window, we call it. It's period of time in the spring where it's calling on a pond and egg laying. Chorus frogs are beyond their peak already. I'm not hearing this, and it's because of the warm weather. I'm not hearing the chorus frogs going as abundantly as I was earlier in the week. So we're moving out of the window of these early breeding frogs, and then we're going to cover some of these other frogs that are starting to pick up right now and are going to be going gangbusters in the next couple of weeks, where these frogs might be nearly done. Okay, so here's the chorus frog calling right now. Recorded this on the ponds out back in the late 90s now. And while we're showing that, I'm going to, or listening to that, I'm going to show you these wood frogs that are going to start playing next. So this recording of chorus frogs is they're going to die down here in the next few seconds. And when they die down, there's going to be a little gap for about 20 seconds. You might hear some birds singing in the background, and then the wood frogs are going to start. And they sound like ducks quacking, like a duck convention, hyper quacking ducks where they all want to talk at the same time. Okay, here's the gap now. There's a robin singing, tweedling away. All right, so I'm gonna put these out onto the table. I have a male and a female. It's hard to tell males from females with a lot of different species of frogs, but some you can tell, and the wood frog is one of them. Okay, kids, stay. Flip this over. Okay. All right, the reddish bigger one is a female wood frog, and the one that's a little bit smaller and more of a grayish brown is a male. So this species is sexually dimorphic. So if you see a reddish, fairly large one, there they go, quackers. So a fairly large reddish one is a female. If outside of the breeding season, they're just out in the woods hopping around through the leaf litter, you know you're looking at a male or a female based on the size and color. Is it reddish brown? Oh, there she goes. Or more of a dull or grayish brown. And uh-oh, not as large. All right, the frog wrangler has almost got them. You can collect those, Carol. What an interesting sound though, huh? Now, before I move over from wood frog, what I want to say that's critical for everybody to know, especially at this latitude, is the wood frog of all Michigan frogs has the shortest window of breeding time of any Michigan frog. They start quacking on these little ponds not long after the ice melts in late March. And usually, if the temperature cooperates, within 2 weeks, they're done. They quack around hyper, lay all their eggs in the pond, and get the heck out of the water and go back into the woods. It might take a week and a half or so for those eggs to develop and hatch. Then those little tadpoles, along with the peepers and chorus frogs, are growing, eating algae in the water, growing, and little metamorph wood frogs and peepers and chorus frogs, tiny things that are, you know, a fraction the size of the adults, come out of the water, say late June or so, and fill up the environments, the natural environments around the pond, and eat and grow. And there's a lot of predators that go farm too. Okay, so I'm going to cut this recording there. And another one that has started calling right behind these first three early frogs is the leopard frog. Now this is a more well-known frog on the poster. Here's our picture of a leopard frog, very distinct, large, somewhat largely oval spots on it. This frog can get pretty large. You can find them breeding on a vernal pond, but very often you look at weedy or cattaily areas, little corners of different lakes and whatnot, and that have a lot of growth. And you'll hear leopard frogs calling there. They sound like snoring. You're not going to find any frogs here that say ribbit. Every species of frog has its own unique call. So I'm going to start to play the leopard frog's call, a long drawn out snore that goes down at the end. They also have this other kind of call that they intersperse that with that I call a mumbling snore. It kind of goes like that. This recording I made of leopard frogs is on a warm, drizzly night. You'll hear the drizzle coming down, as well as a couple of other frogs in the background. Here it goes. Let me make out the snoring. That high pitch in the background is a toad singing. Today it's warm enough. If there are leopard frogs on a body of water, they're calling right now. They're calling right this instant. The conditions and the time of year are perfect for them right now. I love this. I think it might be my favorite Michigan frog call. Listen for those mumbles. Okay, while that's playing in the background, I'm gonna show you our live leopard frog. And my frog wrangler is ready to grab it if necessary. Okay, flip it. There it is. This is probably almost twice as big as those wood frogs that you just saw. So especially the female leopard frogs can get quite large. Out this way, we are seeing serious declines of leopard frog populations. We're trying to preserve the habitat. We are preserving it around on our property and on our vernal pond and in our entire neighborhood out north of Williamston. In the past, I'm going to say 12, 15 years, we've seen well over a 90% decline in these frogs. Sadly, I think we really believe it's climate change related, what's going on. And if anybody's interested in hearing more about our little theory there, you can ask us on the side or after the program. Okay, so I'm going to flip that back over. We'll move on to our next frog. Keep it moving. I'm back. Normally, the American toad starts singing, we tell people, about April 15th. Think of two things with T on April 15th, toads and taxes. Now, a lot of other people only think of the one T, taxes. I always think of the two. I know my wife, Carol, our accountant, thinks of taxes over toads. But for me, nature guy, toads always come before taxes. But this year, it's been so incredibly warm this past week. Carol's out, on country roads going by other wetlands, and we're starting to hear toads sing a good week earlier than they normally would be. I'm going to switch this recording, to toads singing. In their call is a high-pitched trill, all on one note that just keeps going on and on and on, a monotonous trill. Okay, here it comes. Once toads get going, if the weather's warm enough, you don't find toads calling very often if the temperature is below 60. They like their warm. So we're getting 60s and 70s a lot lately, which is getting them going earlier. But as soon as we have this cool down coming up during the week, you're not going to hear any toads. As soon as it might be a week before you start to hear them again after these next couple of warm days. Isn't that peaceful sounding? Long drawn out trill. I recorded this many years ago on a golf course in Lansing at 3 o'clock in the morning. Like on the ninth fairway or something where there was a pond. You can hear it when the toad up close stops calling. You can hear toads in the distance calling on maybe another pond on the next fairway or something. So peaceful. All right. Hey, everybody's seen toads, but I've got a live one. I'll drop it onto the table here for you. There's our toad. So we keep these at our nature center all the time. We're using these throughout the year for educational programs to get people to know and understand these so they have a better chance of surviving. We're telling people all the time, this stuff should be mainstream education, not optional education at MSU Science Festival. Every kid, name a grade, 4th or 5th grader should learn their Michigan frogs and frogs by ear and toads. If anybody wants to ask what's the difference between a toad and a frog, have at it and we'll get around to answering that. My answer is different than a lot of other answers you might get. Okay, we'll put that one away. Flip my screen again. Okay, moving on. I have so much to share with you. if it seems like I'm feeling like I'm in a rush, I've always got a wealth of material. Time flies too fast for me. Okay, so now the next one we're going to get into. Oh, I might want to mention that pond with the toads in Lansing in the middle of the night. Trains run all night long. When it's totally quiet outside at 3 a.m. like that, a train from far away, this train is over a half a mile away from the golf course, and it sounds like it's coming right through the golf course at 3 a.m. But nice, peaceful, additional sound there as well. Tree frogs. Hey, Carol, can you track down a stick for me? That'll even be better. Tree frogs like to be up above ground. And I'm going to show you a nice poster. I have to open it all the way up because this one falls in the crease. There's the great tree frog right here. Now you might notice this one's kind of greenish on the head. The gray tree frog is the only Michigan frog that can change from gray to green to brownish or any mix of the three. It is really good at camouflaging. Yep. Gray tree frogs are the warm, they usually don't start up calling and going to the pond and egg laying until late April, last week of April at the earliest. And this year, because this warm up this past week, we're starting to hear tree frogs call. In fact, I heard a couple going back and forth this morning, but they're in the trees. They are not down on the pond yet. They'll move to the pond once it warms up again later in the month. Here's one. Now, since it's a tree frog, I can show you this one on a stick. This thing is totally comfortable just sitting on a stick. So this gray tree frog, go to your stick. I'll get it. Well, okay, hold itself back up. Now you see right now this gray tree frog is green. Get used to that. You can find a gray tree frog any of these colors and it's all the same species. You can't call this a green tree frog unless you're just saying, hey, there's a tree frog that's colored green. Because down south, there's a species of tree frog called the green tree frog, and we don't want to mistake those. So a tree frog has a trill that it gives. Now the toad has a trill that goes on and on. The tree frog has what I call a burst of a trill. Like that. Instead, that might last 1 to 2 seconds, and there's a gap, and it does it again. Here is a recording on our pond of gray tree frogs. Let me just 1 moment, please. I have to just navigate a bit. Here it is. I made this recording on a night, tree frogs highly nocturnal, on a night on our pond out back here, our vernal pond, when it was a little bit past their peak. If you want to experience gray tree frogs at their peak, take an evening appointment out here, make an evening appointment out here. I'm going to say a weekend in the month of May on a warmish night. You will be blown away by the tree frog calls. It's quite impressive. Okay. Again, so much more information to share with you, but our time is limited. Okay, now I only have 1 more recording to play for you, but the last 2 frogs are on the recording in combination. And I want to talk about these 2. They're Michigan's 2 largest frogs. They don't start calling on ponds until into the month of May a little bit, and then they will keep calling on appropriate wetlands where they exist all the way to like July. This one called the green frog, maybe even mid-August. So here in the container for starts is a male green frog. These things are big. They can get up to about 5 inches from the nose to the end of the body. And then we have a female back here. These 2 are acting a little bit fired up. I'm not going to take these out just yet. I'm going to show you the bullfrogs by comparison. We have a male and female bullfrog right here. And they are substantially larger than the green frogs. These are young adult bullfrogs. They are about, I'm going to say 5.5 inches from nose to the end of the body right now. An adult bullfrog can get about 7 inches from nose to the end of the body. Now, I want to show you this while we're listening to tree frogs. I want to show you how you can tell a green frog from a bullfrog. Don't go by color. They're all kind of greenish in general, but some can go towards brown. Some of them can even get so dark they almost look black. Okay, here's a picture of a green frog on this DNR poster, and I want you to notice this. Do you see this ridge? It starts behind its eye and runs down the side of the back. Green frog has it. Bullfrog does not. Now let me show you the picture of the bullfrog. Again, don't go by color. You could get burned by color and say, oh, this one is bright or green. Here's a picture of a bullfrog, and notice it does not have that straight ridge running down the back. When you get that down pat, you can look at a big greenish frog head sticking up out of the water and notice before it goes down into the water, am I seeing those ridges behind each eye running down the side of the back or not? So you get that down pat. Okay, I'm going to shake the green frogs out. I'm going to cut the recording for now. I'm going to shake these green frogs out, and I'm hoping they stay put. Yeah, I'm hoping they stay put. And I want you to notice this. The male green frog is yellow on the chin or throat. The female is whitish. And the male's tympanum, the big round spot behind the eye, is larger than the eye in front of it. On a female, it's the same size as the eye in front of it. So 2 different ways to tell an adult male from a female. Okay, you two, behave.
And,
Okay.
and Jim, a question has come in. They want to know, what kind of microphone did you use to do the recordings?
All right, now this is back in the 90s where before cell phones got so good for recording, but I actually got my camcorder. I had heard that, you know, back when we had the videotapes and the camcorders days, that a camcorder has a very good microphone on it, but I went ahead and bought a shotgun microphone that is very, you know, directional. You can point it at anything and it's especially loud on whatever it's pointing to, that could plug right into the camcorder. And that in most of my recordings, I use that, although by today's standards, that's somewhat antiquated, right? But back in that time, that's what I used. Okay, so this was mostly 90s. Okay, look at this one. Now this one is the female. This one's the female, and can you see that her tympanum is the same size as the eye in front of it? Then I'm going to go down here and you can see she has a whitish chin, pale. Now this only works for the adults, not young ones. Okay, and then here's the male. He's very happy. Carol's chasing him around. Look at his tympanum, way bigger than the eye in front of it. And then if I move forward a little bit, you might see maybe that he has a yellow chin. I think you can see that. Okay, immature ones, subadults do not have the big tympanum. They need to mature as a frog before they start developing those mature traits of the tympanum and the yellow. So all the little ones here. Whoa, whoa. Okay. All of the little ones have a little tympanum behind the eye, and their throats are kind of speckly to white. So you can find a little bullfrog or a green frog just turned from a tadpole. It's like this big, only about 1.5 inches long. And you can find these around the shallow water at the edges of ponds. Okay. Now I want to tell you, a lot of people know the bullfrog. They don't know the green frog as well. And it should be the other way around. Green frogs are everywhere. If there is water, there are green frogs. They're everywhere. Bullfrogs can be found in every county in Michigan, just like the green frog, but most lakes and ponds do not have bullfrogs. And so, well, I wanted to hold off. Carol's like, hey, play the recording. But I wanted to hold off on that for just another minute to show you these bullfrogs. So as I said, the bullfrog is missing from most lakes and ponds in Michigan. It's not rare, but be aware that most lakes and ponds do not have them. Green frogs everywhere. So a lot of people see a large green frog and they're calling it a bullfrog. There's the dorsolateral ridges. That's definitely a green frog. Okay, this could really be a challenge, taking these two bullfrogs out. Carol's going to be
Maybe
ready.
you could just do
Oh, okay.
starters.
All right. So Carol's suggesting I just tip it down into their container. Whoa! Uh-oh, they're not liking that. Moving thing overhead. Look at this. Remember, I was talking about the differences in color and even some pattern. But look at how one of them is quite a bit lighter than the other one. These are just color variations, and individual frogs can become much lighter or darker. The things I told you about with the green frog, telling male from female, apply to the bullfrog as well. Can you see that that lighter colored one has a big tympanum behind the eye? The other one is darker, harder to see, but you might be able to tell that's a female. And then that male, if we were able to see it, also has the brighter yellow throat as well. You know what, Carol, I'm going to just leave them in the container.
Yeah. Do you want me to try to turn it? They'll probably keep turning, but maybe you can see them.
You know what? Yeah, you're welcome to do that. I'm going to play the recording. I'll just set this up like so. Okay.
Is it on them then?
It is on them right now.
Let's see what the picture is.
Okay, I'm going to play the recording, but there is a third. Oh, it's out. Good catch. Whoa. That one's all the way across. Oh, that one's all the way across the room already.
Way faster than I am. Oh, come here, come here. Oh, goodness.
Now at MSU Science Festival, watch people chase frogs across a room. Okay. All right. So I'm going to play this recording of green frog and bullfrog calling on a wetland in late June simultaneously. The green frog sounds like a banjo string twang. That's it. That's its all call. The bullfrog in a deep voice strings a bunch of deep rums together. Carol's got the male. You can see the bright yellow chin.
Look at those feet too. They're like flippers.
Yeah. This is an aquatic frog. They don't come out of water very often at all. Okay, so anyway, the bullfrog in a deep voice goes, wrong, 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 wrong. There's no mistaking the difference between the two, between and rum, 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 rum. Okay, and again, be aware, green frogs are everywhere. They're not going to start up calling on these ponds and egg laying until we get into May a little bit. Okay, but there is a third frog on this recording. We don't have a live specimen currently. She's still chasing them around. It's this little one called the Blanchard's cricket frog. And the cricket frog sounds like somebody clicking two stones or marbles together. Click, 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 click. That little warty frog is the rarest frog in Michigan. It's a state threatened frog. And when I went out and made this recording, which was in Pinckney Recreation Area, I had no idea that this wetland had this rare Blanchard's cricket frog on it, and they're calling. So you're going to hear click, 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 click. This is at sunset. You're going to hear the clicking of the cricket frogs. You're going to hear the rum, rum, rum of the bullfrogs, and all through it interspersed, you'll hear from different green frogs calling. Okay, here we go. My phone automatically shut off. I have to start over again. Here we go. You hear that rum, rum, rumming of the bullfrog, the clicking, that's those little cricket frogs. They're all hiding in the cattails all around me. I'm sitting out in a canoe here in the weedy area of a lake. Listen for green frogs going every now and then. Nice chorus of bullfrogs. Nice close bullfrog. That one's right next to the canoe. Hear the green frogs going? Red-winged blackbird. Okay, so very quickly, we did a little quickie here and just took us about 35 minutes to get through that. The recordings and live specimens and a little bit of peripheral information of 8 species of Michigan frogs. If anybody's interested in learning more about these or other Michigan native reptiles and amphibians or other wildlife, give us a call, drop an email. Like I say, you can make an appointment tomorrow if you wanted, that quickly. So, hey, Roxanne, we can go ahead and take some questions now if you have some lined up.
We have one question. Besides the cricket frog, which others are endangered in Michigan? Are any of
That is the only one that is state threatened officially. However, I will tell you from my experience, a number of species of frogs we need to be concerned about. The leopard is not officially recognized at the governmental level as being in any kind of trouble, but anybody who knows leopard frogs sees they are disappearing from the environment, and it's alarming in a lot of areas. So just because they're not officially listed doesn't mean we shouldn't be concerned about them. A couple of other species, we actually have one of these in our collection too. I'll just mention this one, the mink frog, is a Canadian frog. It's related to green frogs and bullfrogs that in Michigan is only found in the Upper Peninsula. That's it. You have to go to the UP and you can't just find them anywhere. You have to get out into pristine areas. And these frogs are declining up there. You know what appears to be going on? The habitat is there, but the southern limit, this is a cold climate. They're up in Canada. In the southern edge of their range, seems like they are eroding northward because of, directly or indirectly, because of climate change, the water warming up. And again, I can go into detail on that even more so in another venue with anybody who would like. There's, quite complicated factors that would take a while to explain.
and probably this will have to be the last question.
Okay.
What is the difference between the Cope's gray tree frog and the gray tree frog?
Yeah, so that second one is not just the gray tree frog, it's called the eastern gray tree frog. All right, so these two are genetically really, really close. On the poster, they do not even mention eastern or Cope's gray tree frog. They just call it gray tree frog. Because on this DNR poster, they didn't want to get into it, telling the difference between the eastern and Cope's. You cannot tell them apart by sight. In the environment, you can only tell them apart by their calls. And if it's not calling, you can't be sure whether it's an eastern or a Cope's. However, the eastern is common and widespread through the state. The Cope's has only been found little scattered random pockets around the state. And I've only heard them twice in the state. And one of them was when I was able to make my recording and I got lucky and found a little pond where they were calling. So the Cope's gray tree frog has a harsher trill call than the eastern. And you have to kind of hone your ear to that to pick it up. Cope's gray tree frogs are much more common south of Michigan. I'll mention that. Okay.
Awesome. We've had lots of thank yous coming in for your talk. Thoroughly enjoyed, and they wanted contact information, so I put your website address in the Q&A and also on the Facebook. But if you want to say it live too, how they can get in touch, that'd be great.
Yes, and feel free if you've got a question now or down the road, find our, get our email address and just drop me an email, and we'll get back to you within a day for sure.
Awesome. Well,
thank you for attending, everybody. Thank you for moderating this, Roxanne.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for being a part of the Science Festival. And the Science Festival continues throughout the day today with another probably 20 talks scheduled between now and 5 o'clock. And then we have presentations scheduled throughout the month all the way to April 29th. So thank you again.
All right. You have a good day, everybody.